What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball.
Let's go back to the West Coast and the Warriors. Klay Thompson, end of games being benched. Kuminga now is starting to really play well. Not exactly sure why it took so long. Did Chris Paul start the unlocking? Has Steph Curry? I don't know. A lot of times we forget these guys come into the league at 19. It just takes a long time to get your footing. I don't care if you're a podcaster, a broadcaster, a basketball player. It's just a lot of reps. You got to be on the treadmill in games. So I've said before, I would move everybody but Steph and Draymond, and I think I'm going to add Kuminga to that. So look at their current state. Can they make a move? Do you disagree? Would you? I mean, nobody's moving Steph. Would you move Draymond? Would you move Kuminga? What's the future look like for them?
So it's funny because like a month ago, it was leaning heavily towards a Kuminga trade. To give you an idea of just how crazy this Kuminga stretch is, he had never in his entire career had back-to-back 20-point games, ever, not once. And then he notched off like 8 of them in a row. like he in his last 10 games is averaging 25 points on 61% shooting from the field. Yeah. Like he's on an incredible run, flashing like true superstar upside. And so like a month ago, I was actually pitching on my show. I was like, call the Nets and be like, here's Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, and Moses Moody. Give me Mikal Bridges, like a legit number 2 for Steph, and Dorian Finney-Smith. That way we have some 2 really versatile two-way forwards to put between Draymond and Steph and Klay and go make another run at this thing. Kuminga's made that not an option anymore. Like he's so damn good that you can't afford to let go of that upside. Here's the problem. He's 21. So like we talked about last year in the finals, Michael Porter Jr. is 25 and he struggled on that stage. It is very much a man's game when you get to the later rounds of the NBA playoffs. And so here's the thing, like I feel more sure than ever that Kuminga has star upside, but I also, everything about NBA history tells me that he's not going to push Steph into title contention this year either. And so they're kind of in this weird thing where it feels like a gap year in a lot of ways, because they can look to make a move. I know they've looked to move Andrew Wiggins. I'm sure they've looked at all these sorts of ancillary moves, and they may still make a move for like a Dorian Finney-Smith from the Nets and just like throw like Moses Moody and another one of their smaller contracts that way for a veteran forward. They might call Orlando and get a backup center or something along those lines, like a Wendell Carter Jr. Who knows? But none of those guys are really transforming their outlook within the scope of this season. I think like in a lot of ways, especially with Steph only being 35, and Steve Kerr basically said this in his presser the other night. He goes, we're not going to get anything better in the trade deadline than Chris Paul coming back to shore up the bench, then Gary Payton coming back to shore up their perimeter defense. And then Jonathan Kuminga's rise is an influx of talent in its own way. And they're actually starting to trust him a little bit more at the end of games. Steph, in a big possession against Brooklyn last night, just threw the ball to Kuminga in the post and got out of the way. And he drew a foul, got to the foul line. He's actually been really gifted at getting defenders out of position and getting to the foul line this year. So like, it's weird because in a weird way, it kind of turns this year into a gap year because I don't think they have enough, but Kuminga's upside is more than enough to make up for that in the big picture.
Yeah, and I mean, again, he's 21. I think we forget college football players come with 3 to 4 years. They're on a college campus. These kids, you put them in the NBA, they can't go to the hotel lobby bar. They're kids. It just and then you bring them in, Jason, and they're not getting any real game time minutes. So they're not, in the NFL, even a rookie who's kind of a miss, he's on the field, he's on special teams. So you can only do so much with practice in your 8 preseason games. So I have a soft spot for like the Kumingas when especially they run a system, that catch and react system, that is not for 19-year-olds. Like it's just, it eats people up. So to me, Kuminga's always looked the part. Length, twitchiness, vertical, hungry. It's just a matter of time. Wiseman, I always thought was a weird fit. I don't think Kuminga's a weird fit at all. I think he fits. I just think he's a kid. And this is, I mean, you're talking about a sophisticated offense that's almost European, the way it plays. It's functioning. I mean, D'Angelo Russell came there and had years in the league. They spit him out. They were just like not interested. The guys that have worked, Iggy, Bogut, like older Wiggins, older veteran players that can come in and find a spot. So I'm glad to see sort of Kuminga flourishing, because I do think he looks the part. I think he's a really special athlete.
Looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58? Well, DraftKings has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into $200 instantly in bonus bets. The line right now is at San Francisco minus 1.5, but you can bet all sorts of things on the game, even the coin toss, although big shock, it's going to be 50-50 odds there. My brothers and I always place a bunch of bets on the Super Bowl every year. I'm not actually sure what I'm going to do yet, but I'm excited. It should be a great game. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code HOOPS, that's HOOPS. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58 with code HOOPS. Again, that's HOOPS. The crown is yours.
Let's go back east to the Sixers. I'm zigzagging here, but if for our podcast audience, I want both coasts. I don't want to bore you with too much left or right coast. So I defend the NBA on the Joel Embiid injury. First, it was random. A guy fell on his knee. It happens. Secondly, the NBA didn't want to create this structure where you have to play 79% of your games. They didn't want to do it. They created it because when the TV contract is up, advertisers came to them and said, yeah, it'd be nice if Giannis was available for the Saturday night game. We're paying, $800,000 a commercial. And it became sort of a 3-year load management pattern, which there's no data to suggest that it makes you better. We've learned that this year, that the load management's a lot of nonsense. So the league says, okay, we're a players league, but we need you to play more games. So, you can argue, well, Embiid shouldn't have been playing, but Embiid missed his first 2 years because of injuries. He's had chronic injuries, as many bigs do. It was going to happen. He's been hurt every year. So I'm not going to blame the league on this. But we got into this discussion the other day, and the name I threw out, because I'm old, somebody said, who is Embiid if he never wins a title? Because all the bigs have dominated. I watched my first NBA game in 72 with Wilt. Titles. Kareem, titles. Shaq, titles. Akeem, titles. Duncan, big, titles. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, is he Ewing? Bob Lanier, who, again, at my age was a dominant big, showed up in Bud Light or Miller Lite commercials, whatever it was. But I think that's what Embiid is. I think you have to look at him like Ewing. And Ewing got to 2 finals. You have to look at Embiid and say, listen, injuries, weird teammates, but I can't make him a top 30 player ever. He statistically great. He's the closest thing to Shaq. But for bigs, in a sport where you have a genetic advantage, you're 7'2", like, I'm going to hold you kind of accountable for trophies. They've never been to the conference finals. We always bang on quarterbacks that don't win Super Bowls, but there's limitations on what you can do with 22 guys on the field. I want my bigs to win trophies. Is that a fair criticism of Embiid? He's not a top 30 player. He's just a top 30 talent.
Yeah, well, he was having one of the best regular seasons that we've ever seen before he got hurt this year. But he was also having one of the best regular seasons we've ever seen last year. And then the knee started to break down, got to the postseason, and his jump shot started missing. And then all of a sudden, everything kind of fell off for him. He kind of reminds me of that conversation we were having earlier involving Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards, where he has attached a good amount of his success to jump shooting. To Nikola Jokic's credit, most of his shot making is little push shots and hook shots that are around the basket, which have more playoff resiliency, so to speak. It just translates better to that phase. Last year, Joel Embiid knocked down all of those little face-up jab step jumpers in the regular season, and then he couldn't make them over Al Horford, and all of a sudden the bottom fell out for him. So I think it's important to acknowledge the injuries, and some of that's outside of his control. Some of that also is kind of historically, not exactly the most shocking thing in the world for a player his size to kind of encounter some recurring injuries on that front. I think the tougher question is, as it pertains to the NBA regular season, is you might have to super load manage Joel Embiid from now on. You might have to literally hold him down to 50 games in a season and never let him play more than 3 times in a week, or do whatever it is you've got to do to maintain his knee, because If the issue is he's hurt every year in the playoffs, then you have to find a way to get him there. You have to find a way to get him there. And you know what? That might involve not chasing 70 points against the Spurs. That might involve taking more nights off along the way. And like, you know, as far as the 65 game limit thing goes, because our colleague Draymond Green came out critical of it the other day too. To me, it's kind of misdirected criticism in the sense that, like, I think a limit like that makes some sense. It's an award. It's a regular season award. You should participate in the regular season if you're going to get that award. The bigger issue is if you don't let the press affect your salary. Take that part out. That's the part I don't understand. Make it so that the people voting on the award aren't directly affecting your ability to negotiate your salary. That's where the issue is, because I want players to play more frequently, but I don't want them to play on a bum knee for money. That's where it becomes an issue.
So here's my thing, Jason. If I said to you, listen, I'm not going to screw with your base salary, Jason, at the volume. I'm not going to screw with your fame, your personal life. I'm not going to screw with your social media money, your shoe money. But your bonuses, you have to hit 88 podcasts a year. I don't think that's outrageous. I mean, if Fox came to me, Colin, we're not going to screw with your salary, your social, the volume, but that $600,000 bonus a year, you got to work 211 days on the year. That's all the NBA is saying. We don't want to touch any of your money. And these guys now make social, shoes, overseas advertisements. You're not getting the bonus. You're not getting the plaque money. We're out on that. I think that's incredibly reasonable.